Hey guys, it's Runchuks from Love the Spot, back with another episode of our weekly podcast. This one's a special episode where I don't have a guest, so I dig deeper into some of the topics that the audience asks me about most often. And I also announce a special promotion where I'm giving away 1 hour of group coaching for free to 3 people, and maybe even more than 3. You can find out all the details about this giveaway in this video, and the offer stands till the end of January 2020. The other topics that I cover are setting goals, creating productive routines, and setting up your environment. And I also dig into the topic of coaching and learning poker in general. And once again, I encourage you to grab the chance to get the 1 hour free coaching, and believe me, your feedback in the comments is hugely important to me, and that's why I'm doing this. And if you didn't know that already, this 1 hour is huge value. So let's go. And we're live. Hey guys. So excited about this one. Special episode today, episode number 10. I'm gonna do 10 of these already. That's crazy. Considering who knew? Anyway, today I don't have a guest. I suppose all of you are the guest today. I have a few topics in mind that I really want to discuss, and today I also have a special announcement to make. It's about a giveaway. I'm planning to give away 1 hour of free group coaching to at least 3 people. I'll see how many actually, but at least 3. I guarantee that. I'm gonna give you the details later, I suppose, because when more people show up for the stream. Let's just start digging at it, I suppose. As always, if you guys missed the start, I suppose this is the start, so you're not missing it, but you can find the video on YouTube later. So anyway, with the goals, I really wanted to talk about the goals again, considering it is the beginning of the year. A lot of people are still making their goals, planning their year, etc., etc. And even though we covered this topic quite a bit with MMA Sherdog on the stream last week, and by the way, if you haven't seen it, totally go check it out. It's on my YouTube channel. I mean, don't go right now, but perhaps at a later stage, go and check it out. But as to goals, I really want to reiterate what was said before, and I want to go a bit more into details because I believe that's such a huge topic and oftentimes overlooked. And a lot of poker players actually shoot themselves in the foot by setting out wrong goals for themselves, which limit their potential for success, right? And what I mean is, well, a lot of people would set a money-oriented goal, which is a horrible idea. Horrible idea in poker because, first of all, you can't control the results. That should be pretty obvious. So for that alone, it's a stupid idea because let's imagine you set out a goal, you want to win $100,000 this year. Well, what happens if you achieve your goal by February, right? Do you really want to take the rest of the year off? How are you going to feel about playing from that point on? Like, how does losing like 1,000, 2,000 from that original goal feel? All of these things are so important, and it applies not only to the big picture here of setting out your goals for the whole year, but it also applies to being results oriented in general. That's the reason why a lot of people, probably most people, play longer sessions when they're losing and play shorter sessions when they're up big, right? Simple human psychology, of course. Let's imagine you're up big, and let's say you're up 10K in a session first time in your life, right? Well, it's pretty hard to continue at that point, right? Because you would probably feel, it's such a great score. I want to add it to my, resume. Sort of, I want to have this day, so I better off quit. I'm better off quitting, because let's say if I go to like 9,500, doesn't feel that special anymore, it's gonna hurt me, etc., etc. So a lot of people cut sessions short when they achieve some sort of special milestone for them, or just in other ways just achieve, like, win a big enough amount that feels special to them, right? And as to playing longer when you're losing, well, a lot of people probably feel like, oh, well, I want to get back to even. Let's say I'm losing 5K. Well, I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to get it back. Well, then next thing you know, you're losing 8K. And then you start thinking, well, at least if I could get it back to -5, I would be happy. Then you're -10, and it just keeps going. And then you quit eventually many hours later, and you feel miserable. It's a common trap. A lot of people fall for it. And the underlying problem is that you're actually checking the results to begin with. Like, why are you doing it, right? This scoreboard, while you're playing your session, the result doesn't matter at all. It's not something you can control. It's not something that represents how you played. It's not something that represents who you are or how good of a player you are. Or any of that stuff, right? So don't check it. There's nothing in it for you. Focus on things that you can control. Focus on things that you can... basically focus on your process, on your decisions, on whether you're focused, whether you're alert, whether you're fresh, whether you're enjoying yourself, right? Focus on those things. Don't focus on the money aspect. And coming back to setting goals, well, I told you don't set monetary goals because that basically limits where you can get. But if you want to set goals that are measurable and which you can control. For example, playing X amount of hands this year, playing X amount of hours, and it really doesn't even matter what kind of professional you are. You can find a way to structure these goals. And I've been on, I had my Supernova Elite year some years ago, and so, like from 31st of December, I already knew, or even before, I knew what are my goals for the next year. I need to play X amount of hands per year, which means I will need to play X amount of hands per month on average, which means I need to play X amount of hands per week, etc. You get it. Right, so that was my sole goal for the year, with eventual goal of achieving that Supernova Elite. I had years where most of the year I'm actually traveling for live games, and even then, it's possible to set goals, possible to just decide, well, I'm going to make this stop, and I'm going to do there, go there, and I'm going to go there, and I want to play, let's say, 250 hours this summer in Vegas. So I'm going to make sure that I do it. And these things are actually helpful because they keep you in check. They keep you focused on what's the target here, right? So that's about the goals. And hey, Coffee Attack, nice to have you in the chat. Yeah, you're saying that you wish there was a way to check your hands in Poker Tracker without having to see your monitor results. He's trying to do his best to look at plus minus in the dollars and not let it affect you. Well, why do you need to? Well, okay, I hope you mean after the session, right? Because during the session, why do you even need to check Poker Tracker to begin with, right? There's no information there that is useful for you. Post-session analysis of, reviewing the hands, etc., etc., then knowing your results shouldn't matter that much, I believe, right? Because again, if your focus is on the process, and if you evaluate your play by things you can actually measure, which are, for example, whether you were making good decisions, whether you were lost in some spots, how many hands you were not sure about, whether you were timing out, etc., etc. All of these things you can measure and control, and these, in the end, determine whether you're doing good or not, right? So yeah, that would be my advice. I don't think there is a inherent problem of knowing your results, right? But yeah, it's clearly a problem for some people to, not allowing it to affect you. One thing that I can advise, and by the way, I have this article on 2+2 about dealing with variance, and it speaks about these things. I believe Coffee Attack, you read it already. If anybody else hasn't, well, check it out. But one thing that helps is, let's call it zoom out, right? If you, let's say you see, well, today I lost this much. If you look at it that way, it probably affects you. But what if you zoom out to like a year? What happened in a period of a year, right? That result of one day is probably a little blip on a chart, which doesn't even matter that much, right? So if the results sort of affect you, if the short-term results affect you, well, try to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, what's going on there in general, right? So yeah, try it if you haven't already, and see how maybe that works and maybe that helps. All right, Pablo has a question: if I have any tips for a young guy first time traveling to Vegas for cash game. I do, actually. Yeah, it's a cool topic. I've never addressed it. Ponyball is saying beware of strip clubs. The man speaks from his experience, I believe. Great advice. Yeah, beware of strip clubs, or in other words, just don't go. Just focus on poker. So one thing, some advice. So let's think about it. I've never had to vocalize these thoughts. I've been doing Vegas trips many years in a row. I missed last year. I don't know if I'm going to miss this year as well, but I'm trying to cut down on my live travels, and that's why I'm focusing more on the live games, on the online games recently. Basically from, middle of last year, fully focused on online only. But some of the common mistakes that people do when they go for a live trip in Vegas. Biggest one is burning out. What do I mean? Well, let's say you go there for 2 months. You would be better off being able to play as many days as possible in those 2 months, but playing fresh. What a lot of people do is they burn out in the first 2-3 weeks, play too long of a session every day, not enough rest, too much partying, and then they're chewed up. In the last month, they're playing horrible, and they're prone to tilt, they're prone to suffer emotionally from bad variance, which is bound to happen. I mean, it's a live trip, live poker, a lot of variance, small samples, so you can't really control anything there. So that's tip number one. Just be smart with pacing yourself, right? It's more of a marathon than a sprint in this case for any live trip. You unless you're going for like 3 days or a weekend or 1 week, be smart. Pace yourself. Now, game select, right? There's many casinos in Vegas. Select the game that you want to play in the casino that you want to play. Stay healthy. So many people go sick, right? Because not eating well, not sleeping well. Maintain a healthy lifestyle, maintain a healthy schedule, and it's incredible to think about like how many people neglect it, and then they are scratching their heads about why they come back from Vegas trips so miserable, even if they're up. It takes a toll, these long trips. And really plan your expenses ahead carefully, right? Because not always a live trip makes sense financially. Because you're going to have expenses for the hotel, you're going to have expenses for the travels, you're going to have expenses for entertainment and food and whatever. So just know how much you can spend and, plan it all ahead. Probably talk to some people who are going or been there for advice on exactly which casinos to go to, which games to play, etc., etc. And best of luck, especially for the first time. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're going in summer, it's fun. If you're going before, there's so many hikes, there's so many things to see around. It's a beautiful place. And it can be also a very shitty place. It depends on how you approach it and how professional you are. Sport Kart GT is saying that interesting topic. Thanks, man. So what about if you don't look at the results during your session? You could lose too many buy-ins. Well, it doesn't matter, because you should approach every session from the limitations of your bankroll, right? Bankroll management, solid bankroll management is paramount. You can't skip that part, right? You need to play in the games that you rolled for. So theoretically, whatever happens in the session, even in the outlier sessions when you actually do lose too much, it shouldn't hurt you financially, right? It shouldn't hurt your bankroll, because if you planned it ahead carefully, then, well, it doesn't matter. Now, if you're losing and losing and losing and losing, it's not like it happens without you knowing, right? You still know that that's happening. You don't know exactly how much you're losing, but you will have a pretty good idea. But what's important is to know why you're losing, right? So if your focus is solely on the process and, well, the opponent sucked out again and again and again, it doesn't matter. You should still be feeling pretty good about yourself because you're making all the good plays. Guys getting lucky. Who cares, right? It's going to turn around. You're going to keep winning. But if you're focusing on the graph of like, oh, 1 bind down, 2 binds down, 3, 10, 15 binds down, you're focusing on that, and it hurts, and you're getting emotional, and then you're starting about, well, I need to get back, I need to grind it back, I hate the fish, I hate life, etc., etc. Counterproductive, serves no purpose, and it doesn't answer the question of why are you losing, right? Because if you're always checking your own process, your decisions, your focus levels, you are sort of keeping check on whether you should continue playing the game, right? Because very often it could be the case that, hey, you need a break. You're not focused enough. You're making too many mistakes. You're making bad decisions. So quit, right? So that's my advice. You shouldn't be worried about losing too many buy-ins if you're not checking your bankroll. Because first of all, manage your bankroll. And second, focus on the process. If you're playing good, if you're still focused, if the game is still good, in other words, if you were to if there's an empty seat, imagine hypothetically, right? Your seat is empty at the moment. Would you still take this seat? If the answer is no, probably you should just stand up and go, right? Simple. All right, Coffee Attack. Recently in big hands, when he's in a big decision, he has a mental hitch where he's thinking outside of himself. Some of your decisions are based on what others might think on the decision, or what Monker might think, versus relying on your instincts. Is that weird? Well, you know what? It's not weird. I think a lot of people have the same thing. But it's important to... There's an important thing here, which a lot of people need to hear. You shouldn't care about what others are going to think. Because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to disagree with you. There's going to be a lot of people who think you played bad. Who cares? You need to make the best decision you can. The reality is we all make mistakes. There's no problem in making mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. The thing is, I try to learn from them, especially if I can identify them. So first of all, I'm trying to identify them and then try to learn from them, right? So there's no reason to be a perfectionist. There's no reason to strive for the best decision if you're not capable of making it at that time. Just make the best you can. And trying to please other people or their opinions, well, in the end, it's your money, it's your career. You should be focused on your own game rather than what other people think about it. And Ponyball is saying that that's what it should be when you're learning new stuff. Yes and no. Because, I probably should go deeper on that and explain that, one problem of if during the decision, say you're making a decision in big hand, part of your decision-making process is based on what others think or what Monker thinks, you're wasting too much mental capacity. You are supposed to have a pretty robust decision-making process with no distractions, right? So you're focused on what's important there. What I'm going to think about how you played the hand is really not important, right? So that's my 2 cents about that one. So Pablo is saying bankroll management tips for live. Wow, man, live is really a difficult beast. I've done a lot of live in in my what is now a long career. I think it's important to know what you're comfortable with, what kind of game you're playing, how much variance you expect to be in that game, and how often you play, right? Even though these things theoretically, like if we just take standard bankroll management, Kelly criterion, etc., these things don't matter. But in the end, one part of bankroll management is just feeling good. Some people are more risk averse, some people are less risk averse. So unless you're fooling yourself, just be honest with yourself. How much are you okay to be losing without like feeling mentally, emotionally hurt? All right, so that's my advice. And obviously, if you need to know about the general bankroll management criterias, they are the same for live and online. Nothing changes. Obviously the win rates change or should change. Your live game should be way more profitable than your online games. Rake is different. Take that into account. Variance is different because people play different styles, etc., etc. So put all these parameters in your formula, and then you'll come up with a good figure and adjust it for whatever you feel comfortable with. Yeah, Punnyball is saying you have to be conscious about implementing Monker solutions until it becomes part of you, and then work on something else. That's a cool topic. I wanna, because today one of the things I'm gonna cover, as you can see, goals, routines, environment, coaching. I'm gonna talk about thing related to what Punnyball is saying in the coaching part, and we'll have a decent length discussion about it. Right, Coffee Attack is saying, well, that sometimes it gets to a point where he's wondering if he's playing poker or just memorizing applying Monker solutions. Again, I'm going to talk about it in the coaching part. Cool topic. I'm glad you brought it up because it's in fact something I wanted to talk about anyway. Right, so next thing is routines. Why I want to talk about routines? Because they're really important and oftentimes overlooked, right? So what do I mean? We are fortunate, by we, I mean poker players, we're fortunate that we don't have a boss overlooking our shoulder and saying, well, you're going to have to go to work 9 a.m. and you better clear the premises 5 p.m. I don't want to see your face, right? We're free to choose what we do with our time, when we do it, and how we do it. Now, it can be a blessing and it can be a curse. It depends on how you execute things. From my own experience, some of the things that work really well for people who are poker professionals or part-time poker professionals, one of the things that is super useful is set time. Set an appointment with yourself. Let's put it this way, right? So decide that, well, there's a time of the day. When is the time that you're playing, right? So if somebody, let's just hypothetically say, well, every day, 4 to 6 p.m., I'm playing poker. That's my thing. Now, what happens if, let's say, a friend calls and say, hey, do you want to hang out 5 p.m. tomorrow? No, sorry, I can't. I could at like 6:30, or I could at 3. Can't do 5. I'm playing. If you don't have that schedule with yourself, you're always bound to do things that pop up. And then you're one of those people who's struggling to find time to play poker, right? And that's bad, for obvious reasons, because first of all, if your schedule is fixed and if you know, well, I'm playing poker this time of the day, that time of the day, and that time of the day, and this day of the week is usually free for me, well, guess what? You don't need to make decisions about when you're playing, so your life is so much easier. You can just focus on your thing, right? Another thing about routines, which is hugely important, is habits. And by the way, I can highly recommend, I read a lot of books on habits, on psychology, on learning, on performance, on performance in sports, mental performance, etc., etc. And one of the books that really stands out for me, and I think really applies to, or is really helpful for poker players, especially people who are sort of struggling with, finding their rhythm, finding their time to execute things that they want throughout the day. And Danielle, thanks for subscribing. Really appreciate it. So yeah, this book, that was, that it's coming, but it's worth it, right? Atomic Habits by the author, I think James Clear, if I remember correctly. Anyway, amazing book. Check it out. Awesome read. One of the things that he mentioned in the book, he called it habit stacking. And I read it and I thought, wow, this is what I'm doing, right? And it's so helpful. And so here's what's happening. And I got asked this question before on stream and on YouTube. People would sometimes struggle to find time, let's say, to review hands, right? They would, and in fact, with all of my students, I always say, we don't learn while we're playing, we learn away from the tables, right? So while you're playing, definitely mark the hands. But then what happens very often to a lot of people is you have a bunch of marked hands and they just keep accumulating and keep accumulating. Eventually there's so many of them that you decide, well, you know what, all of these, I'm just going to ignore them. I'm going to try to review hands next month or whatever. You get the point. You never find the time to do a thing that is important. It's important, but you don't find the time. Now, here's where habit stacking comes in, right? And what is habit stacking, right? Again, I recommend you read the book, but if you don't, here's a quick overview of habit stacking, right? So let's make the simplest example, which would be a habit that everybody hopefully has, is brushing your teeth in the morning, right? Let's say that's a habit you have. So you stack other habits on top of it. So let's say you brush your teeth. The next thing you do is you make a cup of coffee. While a cup of coffee is brewing, you're stretching. That's 3 habits, and the sequence. So the trigger for making a cup of coffee is, well, as soon as I brush my teeth, I make a cup of coffee, right? I guess you get the idea. Now, how does this apply to poker? Well, let's say you are one of the people who struggles to find time when to review hands. Well, how about, you have your set time when you play poker, right? Which we already talked about. Even if you don't have a schedule, let's say you're starting your session. How about before you switch on the poker sites, you review one hand? So that's your trigger. You're going to go play a session. Well, what do you do before you play a session? Your habit is to check one hand, review one hand. And all of a sudden, it depends obviously on how many sessions a day you play, you're going to be reviewing a lot of hands, and it's going to translate into immense improvement in how much you're learning, right? Because again, we don't learn while playing. We usually don't learn while playing. We learn away from the tables, right? So I believe that's a huge one for you. So write it down. Yeah, I'm joking. You can, this video is going to be online over the weekend, so just watch it again. But hugely important thing. So another thing, and again, it's something that James Clear talks about in his book, make it easy. Make your habits easy. So let's say, make playing poker easy. Have your setup ready. Even down to a point, like just have things organized, right? Have your icons organized, simple things, but it is a huge improvement if, doing something is easy. it's gonna get done, you know. And we're gonna talk about importance of environment here, and I believe that's a hugely important topic. Before that, though, I wanna address one thing that is so important. In fact, maybe one of the most important things that I can tell you today, and so often neglected. I just see it from a lot of my friends who, some of them quit poker on a low point, and anyway, what I see a lot of people neglect is the social life. All right, and let me give you an example from personal experience. I think it was about like maybe 9 years ago, something like that. I was in a habit of playing poker at night, right? So I would play the whole night. Clearly, I go to sleep in the morning, sleep through the morning, sleep through most of the day, wake up around 5 p.m. or whatever. I start my day at 5 p.m. Well, what is 5 p.m.? Well, normally, by the time I'm, had my breakfast, like 8 p.m. or whatever, most of my friends are either, going to sleep or going to drink. So what am I going to do, right? So I'm just going to, you see my options, like basically sleeping with somebody or drinking with somebody, every day of my life. That's shit. And apart from the obvious that, having this type of life when you're playing at night and sleeping through the day, it's just plain unhealthy. That should be obvious already. But why do we do this, right? Why did I do this? Well, because I don't know why other people do it. But for myself, it was obviously a clear decision of, the games are so much better. There's such a bigger selection of games. I can definitely play in the juiciest games if I play at night. Well, the question is, and first of all, we have to realize every decision that we make, every choice that we make has a price, has a trade-off. Right? So in this case, a choice of playing the best game and playing at night has a price of not having a normal social life, not being able to hang out with normal people, only like weirdos who live at night. And then, what kind of life is that anyway? All the restaurants are closed, everything, people live during the day. So what are you going to do when you're, fully awake, 4 in the morning, So that's the price you're paying. But then if we put a money aspect on it, it gets even trickier and even funnier. Because if we think about it, okay, so the best game, for example, and I'm not saying that's true, but for example, at least at that point in my life, it was true. If I played the best game, it had to be at night. But the question is, how much better is it than the second best game? All right, because it's not like a binary choice. I either play at night or I don't play at all. It was obviously I either play at night or I play any other time of the day and I have a normal life. So how much more am I actually making by taking this decision? All right, so that amount of money, if you want, that's the price you pay for not having a life. In my example, right? And it's obviously a dramatic example. You can go, a bit on a smaller scale with this, but just chasing the best game, how much you gain and how much you lose. You have to think about it always, right? Because like I said, every decision, every choice you make has a price. Right, because even if we think about it in the bigger picture, bigger scheme of things, if you're playing poker to begin with, that already has a price, right? You don't have, like, if you are a full-time poker professional, well, the price you're paying, you don't have a conventional career, you don't have social security, you don't have all of these things. There's so many things you don't have, and you will basically hurt your conventional career chances. So, if you ever have to fall back from poker, well, say you spend 7 years playing poker and you have a degree in marketing or whatever, are you going to get a job easily in your field? Well, I don't know, maybe. But that's something to think about. Every decision you make has a price. Now, with playing poker as a career, full-time career or otherwise, the beautiful thing about it is the freedom. We have the freedom of time. We have a freedom of where we live, where we need to live. And it's good on paper, but how many people actually use it, right? If we talk about the freedom of geographical location, you know, if you are a poker professional and if you're doing good enough, go and travel, go see the world, you know, because this opportunity might not be there forever. And I speak from experience again. I mean, I was fortunate enough to travel to so many places on my vacations and also for live poker. You know, and now I'm at the stage of my life where traveling so much is not that appealing anymore because I have family to take care of and I actually want to spend more time at home and rather than just, you know, going all over the world and seeing places. So while you can, use it. And another thing is freedom of time. You know, you are absolutely free to do whatever you want with your life if your profession is poker. You know, how many people in conventional careers, for example, tell you, oh, you know, I wish I would love to learn to play a guitar. I would love to, you know, paint. I would love to do jujitsu or whatever, you know, and they don't because, well, you know, it's hard to, You don't have any limits. You don't have any excuses. If there's something that you aspire to do, do it and just plan your life around it. And just use this freedom of, you know, you don't have a boss. You don't have a set schedule. You don't have to show up every day. Just plan your life accordingly in a way that suits you and fits you. All right, maybe let's talk about the environment before we go into any other topics. And why do I want to talk about environment? Probably because it's something that is important to me personally, right? Because as some of you might know, the regular listeners, I recently relocated and I now have a new house. I set up my office anew, so I basically followed my own advice on how to set things up and how to make things better. And I love it. You know, every day is just a beautiful day to me. You know, I feel so productive. I feel so happy. It's just insane. Right? And we talked about setting up your environment in a lot of detail, in the podcast with Adam Carmichael, the mindset and performance coach. Again, that podcast is on YouTube. You can check it out. Not right now, but check it out if you haven't already. And again, there's timestamps in the description, so you can just jump to the topic that's of interest. But it was a great conversation with Adam. But I want to reiterate, right? Because again and again, I stumble into people who neglect the super simple advice, you know, don't have distractions when you're playing. Just make your environment easier for you. What do I mean by easier? It's like easier to focus, easier to stick with it, easier to be productive, right? So don't have your phone with you in the room, or at least have it in no disturb mode. Don't browse internet. Don't watch videos, don't watch movies or whatever. Don't do all of these things. It's so simple. It's so easy, but I hope you're not one of these people who does these things. But every time I talk to somebody, even some of the top players, they don't follow this advice and they don't even understand what price they're paying. Because again, every decision you make has a price. And we might think that, no, it doesn't affect me. I can browse while playing and it's fine. It's not. It's really not. So, if you're one of those people who starts your session and at the same time opens a Facebook feed, stop doing it right now. Don't do it ever again, and thank me later. That's pretty much it. Right? So anyway, how about I talk about this? I'll talk about the giveaway now. and we can come back to it again later. But yeah, the giveaway now, and then I still want to talk about coaching. And it's not going to be only about coaching, but coaching and learning. So stick with it. Stay with me. We're going to get to that. I think that's going to be probably the most important part of this stream today. But for the giveaway, oh, okay, awesome question from. Actually, okay, I missed a few questions. So how about I address the questions and then I talk about the giveaway? So sorry about that if you were already expecting the giveaway details. Right. So Ponyball's routine is a chaos. It's a huge leak. It definitely is. It's a huge leak. Routine should be in check, and it's going to be really helpful. And yeah, Atomic Habits, man. Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's a good place to start. It might give you some really good advice, some really good ideas there. All right, so Coffee Attack is saying, is the freedom you get from playing poker somewhat misleading? Because if you want to be a crusher, you don't have to devote, don't you have to devote to the game and study high amounts of hours? Absolutely, you have to if you want to be a crusher, right? It all depends on your aspirations. Like if you want to reach the very top, the sort of pinnacle, there are a lot of sacrifices that you make along the way. Again, everything has a price. Still, there's so much, because like if I speak from my own experience, right? I do devote a lot of time to poker. I do devote a lot of time to studying poker, but also I devote a lot of time to studying or performance or psychology or habits, etc., etc. You know, all of the things that are interesting to me anyway, and they're obviously still useful for poker, so it's kind of a shitty example because, you know, that kind of goes, if you want to be at the top, you need to be pretty good at those things as well, unless you want to be at the top and a complete mess and a wreck. But the aspect here that is important to understand, and it kind of ties up with what I was talking about the routines and the schedules before. If you plan your day carefully, you still have so much free time. Like even with all the grinding that I do and with all the studies that I do in my own time, and obviously, you know, even things like, you know, the stream right here or the YouTube channel, which takes actually a lot of time, to be honest, especially the YouTube channel, too much time. But whatever. Why am I complaining? It's still cool, you know, especially I love it that now I'm getting a lot of feedback from you guys about it, and it's getting exciting, and I like it. But it takes a lot of time. I still find that time, you know, coaching my students, I still find that time. I have family, I find time for that. I still travel, I still enjoy life. I have a lot of hobbies, and I never feel like, oh my God, there's not enough time, because there's enough time. There's enough time, and I can I'm totally free to schedule my own life. And, you know, some of the things, for example, can only be done at like noon or whatever. Let's just, for example's sake, right? If you have a professional career, like a real conventional career, what are you going to do about it? Like, you're not going to say to your boss, hey, listen, can I have like in the middle of the day 2 hours free because I want to do this thing, you know? He's going to say, well, no, you can't, because you have to be at work. You can plan your day yourself. You can plan your day around all of the things that you want to do, and there's nobody to stop you, right? So that's where your freedom comes in. It's not like with poker, the freedom is such that you can just sit the whole day, watch TV, and do nothing. It's hard work, especially the better you want to become, the more you want to achieve, the harder the work. It's not an easy profession. It's in fact a pretty hard profession. But if you do it correctly, if you do it smart, it's a profession which allows you a lot of freedom, both in time and in your geographic location. So Coffee Attack is asking what's my view on playing music while grinding. I think it's very subjective. It's very personal. Everybody is different in this regard. Some people always listen to music whatever they do and it works for them. Some people get distracted and it doesn't work for them. So know yourself and see how it goes. You know, for me, most of the time I don't listen to music where I don't have any distractions while playing. But some of the time I do listen to music and I don't feel strongly either way. You know, when I don't listen to music, it's not because I think it would distract me. It's just, I just don't. And when I do listen, it's not like I feel that it somehow affects my performance. But I'm sure that there are people who would strongly feel one way or another. You know, for some people, listening to music actually puts them in the right state of mind. And it's helpful for them. For some people, it's definitely not. So I suppose you'll figure it out for yourself. Ponyball used to play Minesweeper while playing. Well, how did that work out for you? So Coffee Attack is also debating on a number of tables to play at the same time, finding out what's optimal. Again, it's very, very personal. It's very, you know, each individual is going to have their own preference and their own way to choose. I used to play like, I don't even, like way over 16 tables when it was still allowed, and it was fine. Now I sometimes feel overwhelmed by 6 tables, right? So it might also be that for you, there's going to be a stage in your life when one thing works, another thing works. You just need to know yourself. The way you find what's optimal for you is, again, what I was talking about in the beginning of the podcast. If you focus on the process, if you focus on evaluating whether you're making good decisions, whether you're focused, etc., 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 if you're always honest with yourself about these things, well, then you're going to be, you know, able to determine whether adding that extra table is actually hurting you, right? So that's something you can try. And also, you know what, thinking about the number of tables, one thing that is really easy to do is, for like a short time, try to play way more tables than you're comfortable with, right? Let's say right now you're comfortable with 4, you're debating adding a 5th one. Well, try to play 10 for like half an hour. Obviously, probably try lower stakes because you are almost guaranteed to lose money in the process. You know, but play 10 tables and then scale back to 6. And all of a sudden you will feel like, oh, wow, I have so much free time for my decisions. You know, it's so easy to play 6. What it illustrates is that, you know, a lot of these things are just perception. It's only perception. It's only like when you push yourself out of your comfort zone, the boundaries of your comfort zone really stretch. Right, so if you want to add 1 table, we'll play like extra 5 tables for a while, and all of a sudden adding that 1 or 2 tables is just so easy. Right, Ponyball is also getting older, as all of us do, and he used to play more than 8 tables with music, and now 6 tables with no music. Yeah, that's the trend. I felt it myself, and but also I feel that the games are getting tougher. Right, so you can't get away with just completely autopiloting anymore. And yeah, exactly, you think through the hands way more. There's just way more going on in your head when you're making the decisions. So it's totally true, and yeah, that, you know, by definition, it just, you know, makes you play less tables but make better decisions. So hopefully the win rates are going up. Anyway, giveaway. Again, coming back. So my idea is I want to give 1 hour of free coaching, group coaching, to 3 people or maybe more. At least 3 people for sure. Maybe more. So how do I want to do it? Yeah, well, let's probably start with how, and then I'll explain why. And I just had this idea today. So it's half-baked, but I hope you chip in and you maybe advise something on top of it. So anyway, here's the idea. I'm going to post this podcast on YouTube as always, as I always do. It's going to be this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. So what I want you to do, if you are a subscriber, or just subscribe if you aren't already, like the video and comment on the video, right? And from all the people who liked and commented on the video and are subscribers, I'm gonna randomly choose 3 that, gonna get the coaching session. So what do I want to comment, or what I want to hear the comment? Well, actually, you can put anything in the comments, anything you like. It's totally up to you. But what I really want, and that's why I'm doing this, because I want this feedback from you, would be, well, where do we begin? Basically, any ideas or suggestions about topics of videos that you want to see. Not only the podcast videos or not only the podcasts themselves, but any ideas about, well, I'd like to see this type of video, I'd like to see that, etc., right? So any of those comments would be highly, highly appreciated. Suggestions for which guests should I bring to this podcast, that would be highly appreciated as well. Name for the show, actually. If you can come up with a cool name for this show, this podcast show, I would really, really appreciate it, because I'm struggling with ideas, right? Because I'll tell you what, we're planning to most likely at some point, sooner rather than later, also put it on audio podcast like Spotify or iTunes or whatever. It's going to be wherever you can download podcasts, because of the format of the show. It's a long form conversation where we do interact with the audience, but there's not much visually going on here apart from the chat. So I think a lot of you would love to have an opportunity, and I've been asked before if we were going to do it. It would be a cool opportunity to just be able to put this podcast in your ears while you're running or, driving somewhere, or etc., right? So if you have ideas for the name of the show, put it in the YouTube comments. And, obviously that allows you to enter the promotion as well for the giveaway. Now, what else do I want to know, right? So any ideas about shows, videos, the name of the show, which topics you're the most interested about, right? And even if it includes the topics that I'm already covering, just, if you reinforce that, yeah, that's something you like to hear, then I'm just going to keep doing that more often. And maybe there's some topics that I have never considered doing. So Sport Kart GT is asking if the show's only about PLO. Actually not. That's why the PLO Wednesday kind of sucks, right? Because initially it was... I'll tell you why I called it PLO Wednesday to begin with. Is because it's always on Wednesdays, and because I play PLO, right? And I coach PLO. So that was the idea, it's kind of simple to remember. It's on Wednesday, and, Love the Spot is offering PLO coaching. That was the idea. Now, to be honest, most of my guests are not going to be and are not related to PLO, or at least we're not even talking about the game of PLO that much, just because I try to get guests that I just enjoy the conversation with, and it's usually on the topics that I think are important to voice and which are probably underrepresented, right? Like, for example, my podcast with Adam Carmichael, the mindset and performance coach, I thought that was awesome. That's something that I want to hear myself, right? So that's why I do it. Like the podcast with MMA Sherdog was awesome as well. And did we talk about Hold'em? A bit. Did we talk about PLO? A bit. But all of the other topics that we covered are so much bigger than that. So yeah, the show is not only about PLO. So yeah, suggestions for the name. Highly, highly appreciate that. Right. Maybe also if you have any Mike Tyson as a guest, please. Jesus, that would be fun. Doesn't he smoke a lot of weed nowadays? And he would try to promote his brand of weed on the show. Wouldn't it be cool? Nah, it wouldn't. We would get in trouble. Anyway, so where was I? That kind of, yeah. Actually, you know what? Also, you can leave in the comments if you have any other YouTube channels that you want to recommend, or any other Twitch guys, well, especially YouTube channels, right? Because Twitch guy, I'm not watching Twitch because it's just like trying to find, you know, one time a day when somebody's twitching is usually more difficult than just, you know, at my own leisure time, just watch somebody on YouTube and learn something. So if you have any suggestions, poker related, obviously, right? Anything that's doing, you know, something really good that myself or any of my viewers, anybody else out there would be benefiting from hearing, you know, just put it in the comments. I don't even know if you're allowed to put like links to other channels in the YouTube comments. I hope you're not getting in trouble for that. I mean, whoever is going to post it. So find a way, you know, I don't know. I hope it's fine. But anyway, I would appreciate it. And honestly, any other feedback, that you have, things that you like, things that you don't like, you know, I don't need to only hear positive things from you guys. If you have hopefully constructive feedback on what sucks, please voice it. You know, I want to improve. I want to make this show and all the rest of the things on YouTube that I do better. So I hope for your help and input there. And also, you know what, if you're interested to contribute in any way, like if you have experience as a video or audio editor or any other way that you can actually, you know, help me out or help my team out, because obviously I'm not, you know, it's not all me, my YouTube channel, I have help there. You know, if you're in any way willing or able to contribute, let me know. You know, put it in the comments or just shoot me a direct message, whatever you feel like. Anyway, so you get the idea. All these topics, so basically any topic, just post a comment. I'm going to select 3 people randomly, and you're going to get an hour coaching for free with me. And maybe, you know, maybe on top of those 3 people, I will also select somebody that just did something amazing in the comments, like something super helpful, and they're going to get a special seat. So yeah, if you have amazing ideas, you're almost guaranteed a seat if I agree that the idea was indeed amazing. And yeah, Sport Car GT, name it Runchuks Experience. That's gonna be funny, yeah. I love Joe Rogan, by the way. What a guy, right? And especially the thing about him, you know, how multifaceted he is and how big a variety of guests he has. That's so impressive, you know, because especially, you know, it's so cool to have somebody that is kind of there to open up your own boundaries or your own horizons, sort of, right? Because sometimes Joe Rogan has some weirdo as a guest, and I would think like, what the hell? Why would I listen to that? But then, well, it's Joe Rogan, so let's listen to it. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh wow, I never heard about this thing before. I never knew this thing exists. I'm happy that I do, right? Let me get back to the chat. Tiny Nigel is saying, so if you would be beating an NLHE or PLO 50 cash game in 2020, but also would have other opportunity of trading regular job, you enjoy both the same, what would you pursue? Wow, that's such a tough question, right? It boils down to, what do you enjoy more? And what would you see yourself doing in the long term, right? I think it's hugely important. So that's the first thing you need to consider, the long-term enjoyment, right? Because you might enjoy poker today and for the next month. Are you going to be enjoying for the next 5 years if that's your life? And same goes for trading. You might enjoy it now, next month. Is it going to be the same in 5 years, right? So how do you see yourself in the long term? That's hugely important. And also, obviously, you know, how would you feel about yourself and what do you gain from one thing or another? Because again, coming back, this should be like the name for today's episode. Everything has a price. Everything has a price, right? Trading job, If you mean like stock trading or, trading as in financial institution, crazy hours. If you want to be, if you actually want to earn something, it's crazy hours. Always overtime. They don't even count it as an overtime. It's just, you're just working all the time. So how much more do you gain from doing that, or how much less do you gain from doing that compared to poker, right? And then what's the trade-off here, right? Because, well, if you have no life doing one job and you have no life doing the other job, then it's up to you, right? But with poker, you have the freedom. If you use it correctly, then, you're your own boss. But it's a super tough decision, a really tough decision. I faced a similar decision way back ago. That's probably not the way to express it. Anyway, you get you get the idea. I had a stable job, stable career. I was at it for several years, like 5 years. I had all sorts of things. I had newspaper publications, I etc. on my topic. And then I decided I'm going to play poker professionally. The toughest part was to sort of be okay with the fact that if I switch to poker, I will probably never be able to come back to the profession that I'm quitting. Right? Just because I achieved so much in quite a, relatively short amount of time. In the career, I achieved so much that if I go away for like 4 or 5 years, I won't be able to get back to the same level, not even close. So to start all over again would be so unappealing that I would probably just have to switch to another career. Right? So that was a big decision for me. So I can relate to, finding it difficult to figure out, whether you should go and persuade a real job. Well, I say a real job. Poker is a real job as well, if you make it a real job. If you're just half-assing the whole time, well then, but it's up to you, really. And Ponyball is saying, go for a regular job if you play PLO 50 or NL50. Well, yeah, if we look at the money aspect only, and that stage, absolutely true. Probably you're going to make more in a regular job than if you're just a PLO 50 rag. But the question is the commitment, right? If you're fully committed to improving, fully committed to growing, you're unlikely to just stay at the NL50 level, right? You would be reaching higher levels pretty soon, I suppose. So Cerna has a question saying, hey, hi and good luck. Thank you. My question is, his question is very basic. He's a NL50 cash game player, but he doesn't have experience with what is the best way to start PLO. And is PLO much tougher than Texas Hold'em? Well, cool question. Well, first of all, is PLO much tougher than Texas Hold'em? It's a different game, right? There are different parts to it. Like the decision-making process is somewhat different. I guess you see what I'm getting at, right? It's a different game. Is it tougher? I don't know. I don't think so. I did the transition myself many years ago. I was a Hold'em player for a long time. I was a mid-high stakes Hold'em player, like playing up to NL2K. I had a transition period of about a year, maybe 2 years, when I played both games regularly all the time. Both of them same stakes. Basically, I pretty quickly moved up high up in PLO. The games back then were just so much easier though, so, yeah, but then eventually I just realized that I'm enjoying the game of PLO so much more than Hold'em, and for me it was an easy decision. You basically just, for the pure enjoyment of the game, switched to PLO, only PLO, exclusively PLO, and obviously still continued to play occasional Hold'em just because, like I mentioned many times already today, for many years I was mostly focusing on high stakes live games, right? And sometimes the best games are mixed games, and so I would have to play all sorts of games. Yeah, here you have it. But so yeah, I don't think it's tougher. It's different. That's the real answer. What's the best way to start with PLO? Wow, to start, like if you have no experience, if you haven't played the game before, it depends on what resources you have already available. I suppose if you are an L50 player, you might already have subscription to some poker site. Poker video training site or whatever it's called. Let's say Run It Once, for example. And by the way, are we their affiliates or something? I don't know. I think so. I think that we have some links, or maybe get some, discounts. So I don't know how it works. Sorry, but anyway, let's say Run It Once, right? Watch a few videos, get a feel, try to start playing, see how you like the game. Obviously, start really small, right? Don't just go out and start risking money. I suppose that's probably the best way to start in PLO. Like just watch a good video or two and find some study group. It's pretty hard to find a study group if you're just starting out, because if you find a study group with other people who are just starting out, you are all guaranteed to basically go in the wrong direction pretty quickly, and it's just a waste of everybody's time, But Coffee Attack is saying subscribe to my YouTube channel. Right, I haven't thought about it. In fact, yeah. That's true, because actually, I was saying go watch some, videos from Run It Once. I have a few videos on YouTube, and they're free. So how about that? Check them out, really. Check the ones that are more recent, right? Because I have a few videos there where I play poker on stream about a year ago, and I don't think the quality is very good, for the reason that, I had to talk while playing and interact with the audience, so not all of these sessions were actually any good. Some of them were decent, but some of them were like I'm all over the place, I'm timing out, not making my best decisions. So check some of the other videos. Like I have a video on how to beat micro stakes, so maybe start with that. That's a bit more basic. Then I have a video about where I play PLO Zoom 500. That's probably also cool. So yeah, check them out. See how you feel about them, and probably start there. And plus, it's completely for free. So thanks, Coffee Attack. That's great. Thanks for letting me know that I put some videos out there on YouTube. I forgot. All right, so yeah, show's not only about PLO, where I'm trying to catch up with the chat. Serena doesn't have any experience in PLO, so exactly, that applies. RuncHOUR, punny ball. RuncHOUR, that's awesome. That's a cool name of a show. That's probably a cool sounding name for a show. It's probably a horrible idea for, putting it out for like iTunes or something, because how are people ever gonna find the show? They need to specifically search for it, right? So it probably, I don't know, maybe some of you are experts on the question and you have opinions based on some real evidence, but I would assume that, the name of the show should be such that when people search for something that we talk about, they would find it in one way or another. So in fact, it's probably super hard to find a good name, Joe Rogan Experience. I mean, this guy never cared about anything, any promotion. Everything just happened organically, and he grew, and I love it, But, he started way back. There were not that many podcasts back then, Still, guy's a genius. So what are my personal study and playing habits? A question from Coffee Attack. Right. You know what? It's a cool question, and I'm gonna I'm going to talk about it later because I still want to talk about this coaching thing, right? Which is going to be not only coaching, but also coaching and learning. So I'm actually going to sort of discuss some of my own habits. And if I somehow forget, remind me again. So let's talk about the big, very, very big topic on coaching and learning in general. So if you just tuned in, you're in luck because that's one of the key parts of today's show. No, not really. We actually covered some really cool material before. So again, if you're just tuned in, go on YouTube. Video's going to be out in the weekend. And, there's a big giveaway of free coaching hours with me. The way you participate is, well, watch the video. You'll find out. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat myself. So, coaching. I'm trying to figure out where to start because it's such a big topic, right? So I'll actually start with what Coffee Attack was saying about my own personal playing and study habits, and then we will gradually transition into the whole topic of coaching there, right? So, all right, so my personal study habits, I have a regular schedule on a weekly basis and basically on a daily basis, but not every day. I would allocate some time for studies, and I'm very diligent about it. And by the way, there's one thing that is super useful, which is called the 2-day rule. I don't even know if it's a real rule, but it works for me. I read it somewhere. I like the idea. So the idea is if you want to do something on a regular basis, right? Let's say you set out that every day of the week or every day, like basically every day, I do something. Let's say every day I study poker for 1 hour, something very easily understandable. So of course, life is going to interfere, and sometimes you have to skip. Sometimes you can't do it. And it's okay. It should be okay. You're not forced to remember the freedom thing, etc., etc. You're not forced to stick with whatever you decided to do. But here's where the 2-day rule comes in. It's okay to skip once. To be honest, it's even okay to skip twice. But it's not okay to skip more than twice. Right? So what does it mean? So let's say you skipped one day. The next day, you're like, well, I kind of don't have time today, so I'm not gonna study today. But then you think about, well, but tomorrow I definitely don't have time. So if I skip today and I definitely skip tomorrow, all of a sudden I skip 3 days. So what it means, you will force yourself to basically stick with it, and to go with it. What am I trying? Because I just saw the comment from Kitsune about the 2-day rule, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Was it there? Was it really in the book? By the way, again, highly recommend this book. Everybody just right now go and read it. Well, after the stream anyway. So yeah, the 2-day rule basically allows you to or forces you not to skip around, yeah, and just sort of to stick with it. Super useful. It works for me beautifully. I'm sure many of you would also benefit from implementing one way or another the same thing. Right? So that's basically about my study habits. Now, more important than the amount of time is the quality of the studies. And that's something actually that I want to address in this conversation about, or rather, right now it's a monologue about the coaching. A lot of people, when they, like even some of my students and in general, a lot of people that I talk poker with who have less experience in the game, they're so interested about, hey, how do I play this hand? Like, what do you think about how I play this hand, etc., etc. It's cool. Is it really that important, right? Because if we think about how many people actually spend hours and hours and hours on analyzing like one hand, is it really useful? Are you really learning that much? You need to be smart about what you're learning, right? Because it's too easy to fool yourself into just, 1 hour of studies is not worth the same if the studies are on the wrong subject, right? On the wrong topic. How do you know? How do you figure out what's the wrong topic? Well, I suppose a lot of it comes from experience, but a lot of it is actually coach's job to lead you in the right direction, right? And then again, like coming back to the same thing of how many people actually are asking me, like, how do I play this hand? How do I play this spot? How do I play pre-flop? Like, what's a good range pre-flop? What is this, etc., etc. Well, I think my job as a coach in general is to teach people how to see the bigger picture, how to make decisions, how to understand the game, understand all of the complexities of the game, right? Because, getting bogged down in small details is very easy. It's very easy to just keep chipping away on like analyzing one hand like 3 days in a row. It's not producing the same type of results, right? Again, also it's important to remember we don't learn while playing, so that's part of my study approach. I don't view my sessions as anything to do with me improving or me working on my game, right? And the thing about like studying these easy things, right? Well, let's just study pre-flop for 5 weeks. It's what I would call illusion of knowledge. That's what's hurting a lot of people, right? Because it's so easy to make cheap gains. What I mean by cheap gains is, for example, again, pre-flop, right? Because it's so easy to sort of, I'm memorizing a lot of things. This is really awesome. Now I sort of know what my range should look like. This is really cool. Well, the problem with that is, let's say you know the perfect range, and let's assume that that range actually is perfect. Not just somebody told you that it's perfect, because, hey, solvers still are not even close to perfect when it comes to PLO at this stage. And a lot of people still run shitty sims, right, with wrong parameters, and they get shitty results. You get, the old thing of bad input, bad output. But if we assume that your sims are actually good and your information is actually good, and you spend, a few months memorizing the preflop, and all of a sudden you're the king of preflop, well, the game doesn't end pre-flop, right? And just because the sim says, or the book says, or whatever says, whoever says, well, this is a hand you should play pre-flop, if you actually don't know how to play it on all the other streets, and the solver, by the way, knows how to play it on all the other streets. That's why that's the most profitable play for the solver to, let's say, open that hand in the cutoff, right? But if you have no clue how to play it throughout, then you're actually maybe losing money by playing this hand. So, you investing, let's say, 5 weeks into just studying preflop and nothing else might not be that great. But the illusion of knowledge is that you basically gonna feel like, oh, I learned so much, I improved so much, my game is so much better. Just because you feel more certain about things, right? And that's something that Coffee Attack was talking about earlier, than trying to think about what would Monker do in a spot. What it allows you to do is just basically put the blame on something else, right? Or put the burden of the decision on something else. It's more important to actually understand why it's a good play or why it's a bad play. What are the reasons why I'm making this play? So these things are hugely important. And again, I'm speaking about these cheap gains. Also a lot of people get bogged down into, let's say, a simple thing of, okay, let's study this spot. Let's say we are single raised pot, button against big blind, and let's look at these 3 boards and just analyze the shit out of them, and just, see all of our ranges, how they interact, etc., etc. Well, it's better than nothing, clearly, But again, it creates such an illusion of knowledge that all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I know how to play these spots, but really you don't. All right? So, and maybe I'm a bit too harsh on these things, but you have to be realistic with yourself. Whether you're actually doing the right thing, whether you're studying the right thing. It's so important. It's so not easy to understand what is the right thing, right? And here's where coaches sort of are really helpful. Coaches or other people, like if you're in a group with other like-minded, successful people who can actually help you out and, see your game, evaluate your game, there's nothing that can substitute that, right? Because one of the things, and I mentioned it already today, it's hugely important to identify your mistakes, right? Because the things that we know where we made a mistake, they are probably not the most crucial things that we need to fix, right? Because at least on some level we already know that we have to be careful with those decisions when we make them, and and we probably try to make the best job out of it. But the things that we do that we are not aware that we're actually doing bad, these are the things that hurt us the most. So an outside observer is a really good way to, to kind of put you on track. So yeah, I suppose for me as a coach, that's something that I focus a lot, because in general, when I'm coaching people, I'm not trying to, because let's actually talk about the process of coaching, right? To me, it's not about making somebody play like me. I'm not trying to make them replicate me or my style, right? Everybody's individual. Everybody's style is different. People think differently, and it's okay. You have to embrace it. And moreover, I'm not perfect, right? I'm still a work in progress. I will never be perfect, in fact. I don't think any human being, any human player will ever play like the absolute perfect poker, which everybody will just say, oh yeah, well, you can't play better than he does, right? It's not ever gonna happen. So yeah, so what I try to teach my students is, more on the sort of larger picture, the bigger picture on how to think, what to think about, because that's a big one. Like when we talk about studies, what should you study and how you should study? If you know the answer to these questions, well, you're going to improve a lot. But the thing is, the answers are different to different people, right? Because what I should study right now at my stage of my career is very, very different to what you should study. So that's an important point to make, I believe. And also, what to work on in your game, how to work on it, right? Because through experience, you gain these ideas of, okay, I'm suffering with this aspect of my game, and this is how I work on it. It's a coach's job to actually give you the shortcuts to these things, the shortcuts, the answers to these super important questions. And what else? Yeah, the community, the community aspect I mentioned. Don't try to find the community of people that you can work with and talk hands and talk ideas and allow them to see your game, allow them to see how you play, some video recordings of you, make them comment. It's hugely important. I think, in fact, because all of my students, they interact in smaller groups between themselves. They try to help each other, they push each other, they motivate each other, and that's so important as well. Not just what I can teach them, because in the end of the day, we have a limited amount of coaching hours with them. What they do away from the coaching sessions, that's probably even more important than what they do in the coaching sessions, right? I can only do so much. I can give the general direction. I can lead them in the correct way, in the correct direction. And it's up to them, it's up to each single student individually to make the best use of this, right? I'm here to help, but I can't put the ideas or, put the information in your head. You have to do the hard work yourself, right? So in fact, if I think about my students in general, I want to work with people who are, thinking long term first and foremost. Somebody who's in it for the long run, who are interested to achieve big things over the years. People who are willing to invest in themselves to achieve it, right? Because it is hard work. You have to invest a lot of, if you want to achieve something in poker, you have to actually do a lot of hard work. You have to, step out of your comfort zone a lot. You have to make some sacrifices along the way. And you have to invest in yourself, even just plain financially, because everybody understands you have to invest in the tools, you have to invest in the material, you have to invest in this and that, etc., 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 And again, everything has a price, So, because for example, if you think about it, obviously coaching also costs something. There's a price on coaching. Obviously in Below the Spot, we offer coaching for profit. So, there's no fixed price per hour. It's rather, it's basically free, but it's not, because we do participate in your profit. We take a share of your profit. But, so everything has a price, Coaching costs money, but how much money does not taking coaching cost you? That's a question that a lot of people don't ask themselves, me included, because I actually can speak from experience here, because for the longest time, I had several decisions that I can't say I regret in my career, but I'm definitely not happy about. One of the decisions was, even though I had opportunity to hire some of the best coaches, I never did. I was stupid because it slowed me down, on my progress a lot. Luckily, I had a lot of people that, I could reach out to, and we worked together and pushed each other. So that was lucky, but really, it could have been much better if I did make that step and invested in a good coach. And another aspect I kind of regret was I always thought those seeding scripts, bloody expensive. I don't want the seeding script. Apart from the fact that I, on a personal level, I disagree with the idea of seeding script. I don't like the idea of, some people gaining advantage through technology in the games. I don't like it. I would rather nobody has a seeding script. But the reality was that everybody in the high stakes community had a script, and I didn't. And, so apart from me just not liking the idea as such, I also always thought, wow, but it's expensive. It's quite a few $1,000s. I thought, oh, it's expensive. But if I think about it, the most expensive thing that I ever did is not pay those $3,000 or whatever dollars to buy one of those scripts. Because if I did, well, it would have paid for itself in the first few weeks. Anyway, I don't know why I went on this rant, but these are my thoughts about the thing. And in fact, because that's an advice that I really want, because again, the topic of how to study the game comes up again and again and again. And I highly recommend that, first of all, understand what really are your goals. What are you trying to achieve? What are your aspirations? If you really want to, become as successful as you can possibly be, the best version of yourself in poker, the best advice I can give you, seek out all the help you can get your hands on. All the material you can get, all the tools, the best coaches. And again, who's the best coach? It's probably individual, right? It depends on who you can work on a personal level, right? Who presents the information to you in such a way that is easily comprehensible for you. Because again, people are different, and some coaches, like with any teacher, can be inflexible in some ways. And I'm sure that I'm the wrong guy for some of the students. you know, especially the students who are more willing to see like short-term results, immediate things of like, okay, just give me the charts, just give me the how do I play the spot, like quickly, I want to know, you know, then yeah, you're gonna have a hard time. But yeah, and again, actually, you know what, if you're thinking about coaching, right, if you're thinking about, well, wouldn't it be good to get a coach, I tell you what, just go to, and let me find the link, go to our website. So basically stop thinking about it and just do it. You know, go to our website, apply, because here's the rub, it doesn't cost you anything to apply. You just start the conversation and you see where it leads you. You know, there's no obligation. You can apply, and it doesn't mean that you have to stick with it. You just apply, start a conversation with other guys. They give you more details, you know, and you see maybe that crystallizes some ideas in your mind. You know, because to me, there's nothing worse than seeing people who don't realize their full potential. And there's so many poker players that, you know, could have been somebody and kind of gave it away, like kind of lost the chance and fucked it up along the way, right? Because, you know, in fact, why I'm telling you this, because recently I had an interaction with a couple friends that I haven't seen for a while. They used to be poker players, they quit, and I thought like, wow, why did you quit? You were so good. You know, you were professional, you were doing a pretty good job. But obviously, you know, the times changed and the game changed. Apparently they didn't keep up. They didn't have good enough study habits. They didn't have good enough habits, as it turns out, in general. And yeah, kind of a missed opportunity there. Anyway, so I hope that doesn't happen to you, and I hope that you find a good way to realize your potential. All right. Anyway, guys, I really appreciate everybody in the chat today. As always, you know, it's so cool. That's why I like the concept of having a podcast with a live audience, right? Because you basically can lead this one way or another, and that's super awesome. I really appreciate it. And again, a quick reminder for you, this weekend, this video is going to end up on YouTube. Go there, and you get a chance to get the free 1 hour of free coaching with me, right? At least three of you guys are gonna get that chance, and I'm gonna post the link to my YouTube channel just to make it easier for you. It's here. What I want you to do is, well, obviously, if you are a subscriber, or if you're not, just subscribe, like the video, this one, the one that's coming out, and comment, right? I want to hear any ideas from your side, any suggestions on as to topics, as to all of really, just watch the video again. I've mentioned all of the things. It's a big list of the things that I want to hear from you. So, you know, find the list. There's probably going to be a timestamp somewhere in the description, and yeah, post those comments, let me know, and I'm gonna randomly choose 3 people who are gonna get a free coaching session. Right, I absolutely need some water now. My nose is running. It's killing me. I feel like I'm getting sick, so I think it's a good time to end this. Once again, I really appreciate all you guys. Actually, you know what? Just remembered I missed a few comments here. Right, Pony Bo was saying I was just recommending the book minutes earlier. I'm still not sure that if it's in the Atomic Habits. I'm not sure. If it was, I should have remembered, because that's a book that I was reading not too long ago. So, Coffee Attack has a great question, actually. Do I have any tips on reviewing hands without the input of Monker? I do. One tip that is super useful is to think through every decision out loud. And what I mean is basically talk through your decision-making process. Like, speak out loud about why are you making this decision. Every single one of them, including pre-flop, flop, etc., how many decisions you have, all of them. Talk out loud. It's super useful, right? Because too often we kind of take things for granted that, oh yeah, this thing is obvious, we should just do this because of whatever, because it's obvious. When you have to vocalize some things, you realize, kind of not that obvious. Actually, kind of not sure about what's the right way, etc., right? So try that. I'm sure some of you will find that quite useful. All right, guys, anyway, I'm off. Gonna have some nice dinner. You all enjoy the rest of your day or whatever time zone you're at. So do enjoy all of that. And by the way, Arthur is coming on stream 8 p.m. So in basically 20 minutes, 15 minutes. As always, he's streaming every day. So stick around, watch him play. It's entertaining. And I'll see you all next week. Bye.